Welcome. We're here with Marti MacEwan at the Women of Wisdom Conference. Marti has been a therapist since 1980. She has her private practice and she uses energy psychology in her work. She provides emotional first aid kit online that's part of a whole series of learning for those who are interested. So we'll hear from her about how this kit works and some of the subtle shifting of energies, how that helps to raise vibration and consciousness. Welcome.
Thank you very much.
So in your work, tell us about what you do and what's special about this emotional first aid kit.
Will do. Well, I've been a traditional therapist since 1980, quite a long time. And by traditional therapist, I mean I use therapeutic methods like cognitive behavioral methods, systems methods, working with in relationships, family therapy, and that sort of thing. And mostly on a talk level, like the usual traditional talk therapy. And I think that's very powerful and wonderful. And in 1996, I was introduced to this concept of energy psychology, which brings the subtle energies of the body, which are part of our natural makeup, into the process of helping people move from one place to another in their inner experience and in their relationships and in their lives. And the subtle energies such as the acupuncture meridian system, the chakras, the auric field, the strange flows, other Chinese and East Indian concepts and realities about our subtle energies have just not been folded into the therapy process. So when people go through talk therapy, they may very well experience a lot of help and make a lot of progress. Oftentimes what happens though is that the vibrational feelings that they're carrying stay with them. So even though they know what's bothering them and why and where it came from, and they can certainly have some understanding of it, it doesn't necessarily shift the bodily feelings and the vibrational feelings that they're having. So they keep going back into the same patterns. They keep experiencing the same thing. Even if they understand why and how, if they're really not shifted into a new place, then they will tend to be pulled back to those same patterns. So the energy psychology piece has really added a whole new dimension to people really experiencing themselves differently, and therefore being able to think differently, make new decisions, and their relationships shift, and they're on a new path.
Have you encountered some examples that you could actually share with us that prove this palpable vibration change affects our emotions and psychology?
Well, the proof, right? The proof is in the immediate experience of the person. As a matter of fact, when I first started this, I was not someone who was at all knowledgeable about these kind of subtle energies, at all. And certainly would be someone, I'd never had acupuncture. I probably didn't even know what a chakra was at that point in time. And so there was really no foundation for me to just leap into belief about it. I went to a workshop. My first workshop that I went to was for therapists, and the workshop leader paired us up and had us identify something that a fear that we had, so that we could practice this, right? And the person that I was with, the therapist that I was paired with, had a fear of heights. We were down at the Seattle Center, and for those of you who don't know, the Seattle Center has a gigantic stairway going down from the balcony. You know, it goes way down into the main floor, and we were up in one of the rooms up in the balcony. The first exercise that we did, I was practicing with this person who had this fear of heights. So when we started, we were standing at the top of the stairs, and she was literally like, holding onto the railing like this. I mean, very, very frightened, very frightened. And so, and that was not unusual for her. So we did the exercise, which is basically putting some vibration into the acupuncture meridians in a certain way. And the first time we did it, she went, oh, okay, well, I guess it's not so bad. And then we did it again, and maybe 2 or 3 more times. And by the time we were finished, she was astonished that she was walking up and down the middle of those stairs, and she wasn't hanging onto the railing, and she was looking around like this over this vast, you know, this vast main floor of the Seattle Center, just completely blown away that she wasn't experiencing the same fear. But bodily, she wasn't experiencing the same fear that she had just a few minutes ago. That was what hooked me, was seeing that palpable change in her experience. And that's just been replicated thousands of times since 1996. So it really was my clients' report of the shifts that they experienced from the inside that was the proof to me that there was something to it. And then, of course, this is something you apply to yourself as well. So there are many, many things in myself over the years that I have noticed and then applied this process to in some way, and have felt the difficulty just almost melt away. You know, I mean, I won't say that happens all the time, but in the main, if you really focus on the raw feeling of what it is that's bothering you, and then you work with the energy of that feeling, it really does, it's like untying a knot in a rope. The rope's still there, you've just taken the knot out of the rope, right? And then you have a rope without a knot. And it feels a lot different than a rope with a knot in it.
Yes.
You know? So
right.
That's a metaphor for it. So.
Yeah, I like the metaphor very much. There's also a metaphor where the rope is actually tied with several knots. So you would actually release it one by one.
One by one, that's right.
Yeah, and since you know how to
right.
untie one, it's much easier to
yes.
untie the rest.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Yes, absolutely.
Okay.
And that's what we say, is that some things that people are troubled by are more complex than others. This particular person who had this fear of heights had a rope with a knot in it. You know, the fear of heights was and oftentimes specific phobias like that are, if we say it, one knot ropes.
Yeah, right.
And those can be untied very easily. I mean, I have worked with people who are with fears of spiders and fears of, you know, when it's not tied with a complex interweaving of past experiences and so forth. Sometimes those things can be very cleared up quite quickly. On the other hand, you can have a lot of knots in the rope, and so you take them apart one by one
right.
until it just doesn't have any. But it doesn't necessarily mean you have to take every knot out of the rope, because it seems that our energetic disruptions or entanglements, if you will, are such that if you take if you work with this, you know what it's like? It's like you have a complex knot. Sometimes if you have a knot that's very complex, you wiggle this part and then you wiggle this part and it gets looser over here and looser over there,
yeah.
and pretty soon the whole thing sort of starts to fall apart. And so it can be that way too.
Right.
Yeah, but that's
yeah.
a great metaphor.
Yeah, it really is. Yeah. Now, from hearing about this particular person with the steps, it sounds like there's some partnering, you know, involved. What about for people who want to learn to do this on their own?
There are a number of techniques people can use on their own. One we've developed, we've called Emotional First Aid, and it's available online at www.emotionalfirst-aid.com if people want to go and look at it. It's an emotional first aid kit, has in it the 3-hour workshop where we teach our particular, when I say our, I'm referring to Stephanie Eldringhoff, who is also a therapist, with whom I developed the emotional first aid process. And we have our DVD with our 3-hour workshop, and then some sample sessions and some suggestions about how to go about doing this for yourself, and how to go about really applying this to yourself when you don't have a therapist or a guide to take you through it. The emotional first aid process that we developed actually addresses not just the acupuncture meridians, but also a lot of the different subtle energy systems of the body, including the chakras, the strange flows, which is, you know, another Chinese energy medicine energy system, and the auric field, and other of our natural subtle energies. So it's quite a comprehensive process, but it's also really easy. It's really easy. So what a person could do if they knew how to do that process would be to choose a focus of attention or an intention that they have, and then while they're holding that in their consciousness, the principle of the thing is that when we focus on something that we either want to diminish, that's like a knot in the rope, or we want to amplify, like we want to strengthen that rope, or you know, make it into a better rope, if you will, to carry that metaphor a little too far. Either way, strengthening the subtle energy systems will assist the person, because if, for instance, you have some disruption in your energy field, like a traumatic experience, or perhaps anger, resentment, or some other experience that gets in the way of you feeling more higher vibrational feelings. If you strengthen this energy system while you're focusing on that, it will tend to dissipate those feelings. So you feel better and your vibration is higher. Right? And if you want to amplify a positive experience, you use the same process to once again strengthen and connect and correct disruptions in the energy field, which raises your vibration, so you feel better. So either way, what you're doing is continually refining your energy system and making your energy system stronger, and it elevates your experience. Right? But the effect is that if you raise your energy in the face of a problem, the problem dissipates, which feels like the intensity goes down. Right? If I'm feeling very, very angry, like if I rated it, say, on a number system from 1 to 10, and I've got a number 8 anger going, and I strengthen the part of my energy system that holds that anger in place, then I'm not going to feel so angry. It really does calm me down. Just like the woman who had that intense fear of going down those steps, and we did that energy strengthening, a little simple energy strengthening exercise, and her fear went down dramatically because it took that knot out of the rope, and it refined and strengthened her energy system. You following me?
Yes.
Yeah.
Now, for those who are on the spiritual path, do you think that this type of work is a necessary part of the process or an enhanced part of it? What do you think?
I certainly wouldn't say about any particular approach that it has to be that approach for someone who's on a spiritual path. You know, with there are many paths up the mountain.
Right.
I think that this tool, if you will, helps people not be so tied up with the human angst of, you know, our just natural human suffering. And as we are not so tied up with our natural human suffering, then there's more room for us to have more expansive feelings. There's room for us to elevate our emotions as well as our intuition and our ability to tap into higher information, simply because we're not so solidified and locked in to those other feelings.
It frees us up to a lot of things that we could be open to.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Right.
Frees us up, exactly. And allows a lot more flexibility in the directions that we take and how we respond to situations, and you know, where we want to focus our attention, what kind of choices we want to make in terms of focusing our attention. So many of us go along in our lives so preoccupied with those, with our stresses and worries and resentments and angers and you know, mistrust and everything like that, that it really locks us into that as our own, that's what we're busy with. You know, that's what our energy systems and therefore our thoughts and feelings and everything are all tied up with. But if we can release that, boy, it just changes everything.
Well, you know, I find it so admirable for therapists such as yourself, who's always learning and actually applying what you learn to yourself.
Yes, that's very true. I have definitely applied this to myself.
Yeah. Do you want to talk a little bit about that?
Sure. Yeah. Singing. has been something that I've taken on certainly as a passion, and also as a growth vehicle for my own personal growth. And when I first started learning how to sing, I had sung in choirs and that sort of thing off and on for a lot of my life, but I had decided in just not very many years ago, maybe, I don't know what year, I can't remember, but maybe 5-7 years ago, to learn to sing in public as a performer. And I didn't realize how much fear I had. The first lesson I went to, my teacher asked me to sing a song for her, and as I'm very often fond of saying, I was just fine on the la 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 la's, and as soon as she asked me to actually stand in front of her and sing an actual song, as though I was performing a song for her, I mean, I went into such fear. It was very close to a panic attack. It was very difficult, and I had no idea I had so much fear. And from that point forward, I've really, I mean, among learning to sing certainly is a big part of it, but I've also really worked with my own energy system to get past all kinds of aspects of my own fear of performing, and in particular my own fear of singing, and my own fear that I would never sound good enough for anybody to want to hear, and all kinds of different aspects about my singing. So that's been the main arena that I've worked with. Right.
And where are you now with your singing?
Where I am now with my singing? Pretty good.
Good.
Well, I'm performing now, and performing more, and always improving. It certainly isn't anything you can say you've arrived. I'm always improving and always working on it. But the fear really is diminished. It's so to the point where it doesn't scare me to get up in front of an audience and stand up there and sing a song. I mean, even if I'm not perfect,
Right.
I think that was really a part of it as I'm thinking. I mean, I think I had an idea when I started that a person didn't have a right to get up and sing in front of the group unless they were perfect at it, right? And I certainly wasn't perfect at it, and I'm certainly not perfect at it now. I don't know anybody who is. Well, maybe the greats, but that's not the fear of not being perfect at it isn't in my way anymore. I don't. Here's an example. You want an example? Years ago, I was going to get up and sing in front of a group as a part of my teacher's showcase, right? And I was standing in the wings behind backstage, and was ready to go up and do my part in this little cabaret performance we were doing at the time. And as I was standing there, I realized I knew my music, I knew what I was doing, everything was fine, except that my body was going crazy. My body was just going nuts. My heart was racing, my feet and hands were sweating. I was just very uncomfortable. And at that point, just standing there in the wings like that, I decided that if I couldn't conquer that, I wasn't doing it anymore. Because I was taking it on for fun, and this wasn't fun. And if it wasn't fun, I just didn't want to do it anymore. So I went on and I did it was fine, I did that performance. But later I sat down with myself and I thought, by myself, and I thought, if my body was responding with that much adrenaline, basically I was having symptoms of adrenaline, I must feel like something is threatening about getting up and being in front of this group of people and singing. Now, granted, I was way beyond singing "Mary Had a Little Lamb" to my teacher, so I'd really come a long way. But still, I was still experiencing quite a lot of fear, and it was just knee-jerk. It wasn't, I wasn't choosing to feel fear. It was just coming over my body. So I took myself aside later, a day or two later, and I thought, if I'm experiencing that fear, then something in my system is feeling threatened, right? Because you have a fight or flight or freeze response when you feel threatened. And so I just kind of meditated and sat with myself and realized that what the threat was was that those people could see through me. They knew darn well I wasn't a singer. You know, that was where my mind went. They knew darn well I wasn't a singer. I was an imposter. What was I doing standing up there pretending to be a singer? Even if I could sing well, that didn't make me a singer. Isn't that silly?
Oh, wow.
And so I went. So I went.
Interesting illusion.
I know, interesting illusion. So it was.
Yes.
So I went. I thought, well, where did that come from? And without going into detail, what happened was my mind went back to an incident when I was in 4th grade, when it was a very embarrassing moment, right? And when I was very visible, and I fell down in front of, you know, a lot of people, and it was an embarrassing moment, like we've all had embarrassing moments. But I had associated being seen and visible with a dangerous situation. So of course my body would respond, the energetic and physical response would be as though I was in a dangerous situation again, because there I was being visible in front of people. So anytime I felt visible in front of a group of people, it would re-trigger that vibrational response that was very uncomfortable, and then my adrenals would go, and I would be in fear, and my heart would race and all that.
Past memories.
Yeah, past memories that would trigger up that same sensation. So I sat down and used the very techniques that we're talking about for myself, and I went back into that 4th grade experience and applied these energy clearing techniques until I could not feel that anymore. You know, it went right, I really got it down to the place where even if I thought about that incident, there was no charge on it. There was no felt sense about it. It was a memory, but it wasn't something that had any pain associated with it, right? So that was all nice, except I still didn't know if it was something that would carry over into a real situation. So, long story short, I have never had that experience again.
Great.
I've been a little nervous sometimes, but mostly because I didn't know what I was doing. You know, I didn't have the song down, or I forgot my words, or, you know, whatever it might be, but not anywhere near to the point of that kind of adrenaline response that I had before.
Well, maybe now you would like to demonstrate, you know, what an excellent singer that you are. You're not an imposter.
Oh, I don't know. I don't know.
Yeah.
Well, actually, I can't just perform for performing here. No. But you and I were talking earlier about what singing is about for me. You know, why do I do this, and or more like, what's my aspiration as a singer in terms of my relationship to the audience, right? And in that conversation that you and I had just a few minutes ago, I was saying that there's something very reverent for me about singing for an audience. And as I said earlier, singing for an audience isn't just presenting music to an audience. It's joining with the audience and singing for them, like you would speak for someone in their place, right? And the sense of singing for an audience and representing them with the music to the point where they resonate with that experience, and it joins us all as human beings, and it cloaks us all in a self-awareness as human beings that's really quite reverent. Yes. Even if it's a silly song or a sad song, or, you know, not necessarily does it have to be metaphysical, but so an example of that, the story I told you, is that I wrote a song called "Can't Stop." I was performing it at one of the local clubs here, and it was, you know, the place was filled with people, and I was singing, "Can't stop thinking about you, can't stop, baby, it's all I ever do, but maybe if you stop thinking about me, I could stop thinking about you. So just stop thinking about me, please stop. Honey, your thinking's home, have a chance to stop thinking about you." Right? So and so what was funny about that was that at the table over here, there was a table of young women over here, and they were going, "Ah! and they were laughing, and I thought, they're not laughing at me. I mean, nobody else is laughing, so I can't be terrible. And later on, I went over to them and I said, what's going on? What's happening? She said, that's exactly what I'm going through in my life right now, you know. And so it was a moment of joining. You know, it was a moment of representing them and saying, yes, we're all human and we all have these experiences, and here we are together being all set, being, you know, being unable to stop thinking about someone, you know.
Well, I mean, I love the reversal of that. I think it's exactly what you do with the energy field, too. That this connection, the subtle connection between you and the audience, you know, you and the client, or our vibes and our surroundings.
Yes, yes.
All of this, they actually are cyclical. They feed on each other.
Right.
So for you to be coming from that particular intention and with that kind of attention, I think it does bring a different quality to your singing. I mean, not everybody sings from that particular place.
It makes it fun for me.
Yeah.
It really makes it fun for me. It's like, here we are all together. It's not, here I am up here presenting myself to you, hoping that you like me well enough that you'll come back and you'll see me. You know, there's, you know, where there's that separation. Yeah. It's more of it's more of an event that we're creating together. You know, if a singer doesn't have an audience, then there's no event. Right. Right. If an audience doesn't have a singer, then there's no event, or musicians, whatever. But so we're co-creating, you know, this event, and part of that is recognizing the human condition that we're all in, whether it's the blues, or if it's a swing tune, or if it's classical, or if it's, you know, hill rockabilly, or whatever it is,
or chanting.
Or chanting.
Yes.
In your case, that's right. That's right. It's all about representing ourselves as human beings.
Right. And this brings us back to the place that you kind of started out from, and that's kind of changing our inner world. Really changes and ripples out to changing the outer world.
Right. Right. Because if I'm coming from a different place in my own emanation of love or compassion or humanity, then you pick that up, and it shifts you, and then you go home in a different mood, and then you treat people around you differently because you're in a different place. So it's really that ripple effect.
Right.
Yeah. And then with the energy psychology piece, if let's say, just putting it in my own terms, if I'm not living in such fear or such anger or resentment, and that's just not an experience that I easily tap into anymore, then my relationship with anybody, whether it's my loved ones or my children or my friends or the people I meet on the street, is going to be a totally different tone.